Okay, we are live now. Welcome back, everybody, to another evening of live game development. I'm joined today by my buddy Alan, who is working on some projectile stuff. So, I guess to start off, we're just going to show off. I'm going to show off really quickly what we've built the last week or so, and I guess we'll go into this level just to start with. The big emphasis I had last week was getting a big chunk of the metagame done, in addition to fixing some of the other bugs with the projectiles. So I've added a handful of new feat types that are like these perk elements that let you modify your attacks. So one of the big ones here is I've allowed it so I can build a system where I can apply status effects on certain attacks for the player. So this could be added on. This one's added on just basic attacks. It's not added on the specials. It's not added on the dash attacks. And what that will do, it'll allow us to add a bunch of new. Once I start building out the big status effect system, we'll have a lot more opportunity to build upgrades that are going to work. Alan, can you say something so I can, you're at least able to.
Hello.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Now I can't. I didn't get your. I didn't get you on stream here. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I was posting the link.
Let me close this down here. So that was a big chunk of it. Alan's gonna be working on some of the new projectile art for these jolting projectiles. So one of the other things I built was a new projectile type, and I'm going to go over real quick how I set that up. The big problem I've got with any kind of networking solution for projectiles is that they have to be deterministic. And what that means is once the projectile's been fired from the player, it only needs the one event and then uses the timeline in order to give you its actual position at the correct time. So this new type of projectile, I call it a jolting type projectile, and what that does is it creates this semi-random pattern of attacks. Now if I were to turn off the jolting effect of this thing, you'll just see that these projectiles are going in a straight line, but what it does is it takes the same way that the sign projectiles were built, where I offset them on the tangent. It actually reads off of a curve, and then it samples that curve at random intervals. Let me go ahead and show you these two curves. So in order to get this effect, I got this thing called the jolting long curve, which is, you can see this is divided into quarters here. So the first quarter, it's got that slow slope that will go up and down, and then the second one will slope down and go up. And then there's one that it acts very much just like double the frequency, and then the final one is also double the frequency. And in the projectile subtype, when it's moving it across, it first samples it based off of the GUID of the projectile, and then it multiplies it by a certain value. And this is just multiplying it by quarters. So the first projectile that's fired is not going to be the same as the next one, and that's because the GUID is basically the only unique ID that I have that will get networked across on these guys, in addition to like the timestamp. But we still want it so that if two things are fired at the same timestamp exactly, they're going to have a different pattern. So it's got the long value here, which will sample on that curve, and then it also has the second curve, which is my short curve, and I divided this into eighths. So this is the first eighth, this is the second, and so this short curve samples at double the rate, and it also moves faster along the curve. And so let's show you what it looks like in the data setup. I still got all of my projectiles coming out of my projectile data table, which ideally these classes, these projectile datas, are actually going to be turned into something that's not in C#, but something that I can modify in like a text editor. That's going to be external to compile. But I made these new parameters, and it basically uses the same kind of parameters that the sine wave uses, the sine projectiles from the Necromancer, and it basically defines how long it takes for them to complete the curve length. Gets the factor here, so I don't have to calculate the factor each time. And then update tick, and then I set up the amplitude of it. So larger amplitude for the long one means that it's going to go further out from the tangent, and then the shorter amplitude of the short wave is going to go less far out from the tangent. So that's basically the new projectile in a nutshell, is how it moves through. And last week I spent some time recalculating all of, or basically moving where all the projectiles were calculating their position at time, and I moved them into their own subtype class, because my projectile class is getting pretty big. Alan can probably tell me how poorly this is written.
I'm not looking. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I'm doing 2 fix my optimization projects in real life. I'm not looking.
I don't know how. I gotta be able to turn you up. You are very soft.
I'm sorry. Let me see if I can do a boost.
Okay. Let me see if I can modify your incoming audio in real time. Okay, so yeah, you're at 100. Let me pump you up to like 200. Or let's start with 150.
Well, Windows thinks I'm at 100 too. I don't know, my eraser has.
Okay, that should help. I don't know. This is the first time we've done it, so we will see how well this ends up working out.
Buddy cares what I have to say. It's fine.
So while Alan's doing, Alan was generous enough to spend some time doing what?
What's the name of the thing I'm supposed to be working on?
So the thing you're looking at is, if you look at Jolt, it's
Holy Jolt.
Holy Jolt is the name of the skill.
Holy Jolt. Okay, I've got it. Now, where the heck have we been saving materials? I cannot remember any of this.
We've had them in 2 locations. You put them in assets. I usually put them in resources, I believe. Let me see.
Okay.
If you just type Matt in the search, you should be able to get a bunch of them. So materials.
Yeah, I was like looking for like where the imp fireball was, and I was like, oh, I'll just put that in the same spot.
There's a bunch in the. I don't know where the imp fireball is.
Fireball. Here it is. Well, I just found the thing. I'll just find it this way.
Okay.
Oh, it's just the one instance of it so far.
Yeah. So in order to get this thing to load on your character in immediately, is you want to go to your player class. Just type in like player.cs, and that way, I didn't set this up, I don't think. There's a request spawn hero, and this just overrides all the data that you load in. So if you just go to where it says equip utility, just type in Holy Jolt, scroll there, and that should give you it when you spawn in. If not, I put the scroll in the test bed level.
Okay.
So if you go to debug connect, it should just be in there like south.
Right.
And so Alan's working on that. You said you weren't going to do any kind of carding. You were just going to make it through the same material process as the other ones?
I think so. Or I'm going to do a variant that does quantized scrolling.
Okay.
I think that's the plan.
So what I did for these new feats, go ahead and show you what I've got. Actually, I can just load this in. So these new feat types, actually be 3 kinds of them. And let me go over those real quick. And then I'm going to get into what actually I'm going to be working on tonight, because I had planned on doing either what we talked about, Alan, before, with the getting fireballs to be in that procedural way of the shader.
Yeah.
That was one of the options, but because I did 3 versions of the 3 different new feat types I've got. Let me delete this guy. And so in my tree, I've added I've added the one that causes burning on hit, and I've added 1, 2, 3 that apply that spawn a projectile when you dodge, and then I've created another one that causes projectiles to spawn when you first hit target. And I was thinking about going through and fixing and making the correct projectiles for the dodging ones. But I think my time is probably better spent right now getting the boss room completed, because I still have a bunch of tech there I need to build, and I can always do the art later. But if you look, let me just grab some experience here. My Frostburst dodge is basically the same Frostburst that I've got for the Ice Wand, which is kind of standard smash the ground and freeze guys. The Fireburst dodge is the Fireball. And then the other one is just the Holy Bolt Blast. And so because these perks are now set up as typed, like I'm just replacing them as if you pick a new one, it's just gonna flip it out, the different version. Now ideally we'll have some way to either prevent players from building them their kit improperly, or we have some warning that says, hey, this one's going to override your last one before you select it. So that's another piece. But what I'll be working on tonight is I have spent a little bit of time with the boss room, and I had discussed earlier that boss rooms in the game will have all the standard stuff you get in a boss. You get phases, you get different actions that occur, calling them layer actions that'll happen. They'll spawn monsters in specific tiles while the boss is being fought. Let me take a look at my boss room chunk. I think west is the one I'm going to start with. No, actually east is the one that loads in. So I have already went ahead and built the flags for what a boss room is, and I've actually built the assignments for the boss types that spawn in the room, and I've actually set up layer action in this room. But what I need to do is actually get these hooked up and spawning the correct stuff. So earlier the week, you guys have seen the Demigorgon boss who will spawn the tentacles. So I made a tentacle monster that will pop out of the ground and throw rocks at players. So that he'll have a phase where you not only have to deal with the big boss, but you've also got these coming out. I've got falling rocks on my list of other ones, and some various things where I can force the boss to perform an action when his phase changes. So providing him some buffs at the same time as forcing his controller to perform an action, which is actually going to be a little more complicated because I got to figure out how I'm going to kind of pause him, because a lot of the controllers in game, they don't really use a whole bunch of information about the world, except for, I guess, the Necromancer is the only exception right now, who will track for dead monsters to revive. So I'm gonna start digging into that. Let's see. Got the boss. Let me close down Photoshop here. Okay. Let's take a look at the boss room. So here's a boss room event, and the boss room events work very similar to how all the monster room events work, where they'll be tracked when the mission's loaded and all the chunks have loaded in. It will kind of cycle through the chunks, figure out where the boss room is, and then populates it with all the data for the tile data that it needs. And then it will register for these kind of events. So you can see that we've got, what's the biggest tile that I've got here is proximity tiles. So what this means is when these tiles are assigned, they get registered, and when the player steps on them, it will move it into the active state for the boss room event. So what I've done is, this is like the most basic version of it, and you can see it in the boss room mission I've built. And now what I want to do is extend it and make the special events that I have for the Demigorgon. And I wrote down a bunch of things I want to try out to start with. So I'm going to start going through my list here and start building. I think the first one is just to make sure I can get the boss room to spawn monsters. Let's see. So we want to start with spawning monsters in phase 1. So in this boss room, we've got layer action rates. We've got we've only got 2 layer actions, so we'll probably add more later. Actually, we could just add one here because I've got the tiles all set up. Okay, so we've got now this is a reference, so I don't have the ability to set a timer on it unless I set a timer on the mission itself or the mission manager. But what I want is when I call spawn boss, I want to be able to track. I want to be able to track not only if the boss is dead, because that's the most basic version. I want to be able to track the boss's current phase. Looks like I need to expose some of these things. Okay. On track boss killed, and this is all needs to be protected as well. And I'm going to make a real set of functions here to, should I make something that tracks? Should be something that activates when the phase change. And then I'll pass I'm going to pass the old phase and the new phase. Hey, we already got Russian porn bots. Awesome.
We have what?
In the chat.
What happened?
The
Oh
chat.
no. Hey, don't kick them.
Well, maybe they'll learn
that's
something.
watches.
Yeah, I wouldn't click that.
I'm not clicking.
I'm not your mom though. You can do what you want. Okay, so that's cool. And I've got to actually make sure that event fires off, because we've got in the monster. I think that what controls the monster is the monster controller, which may have the phases in it. Okay. So yes, I have monster phase. So the first phase when a monster spawns should probably just be 1. So I want to do this. I want to get this. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna pass new classes to this guy, because this can't be exposed like that. That doesn't make any sense. But I could probably grab.
PNGs work in Godot? I can't remember.
What's that?
Do PNGs work?
Yes.
Is that legit, or do I have to make them targets? I couldn't remember.
PNGs work.
Okay. Oh, I've totally added a folder you already had.
I probably just want to grab the data from the monster type. The cool thing about the monster data as opposed to the character or the hero data is that the monster data is basically just a switch on whatever type the monster is, and luckily I've made a Demogorgon boss monster type. So let me just grab this. I'm gonna get phases. And the only one that really matters right now is the boss. Okay.
Intruders.
Noisy dogs. Okay, return. No, we don't need any of these guys stuff, but we do need. I gotta add a. Why is it not like the list? There we go. I will say, when you go to working in C++ and you go back to C#, it's the little things that really like catch you off. Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
For sure. Okay. That's part of the problem.
Okay, so I've got the concept of this, and what I need to do is I need to fill it with some stuff. So each monster phase, I just created the class pretty recently. I forget what I put in it. Okay, so it's just going to be a holder for a couple of things, like the phase ID and the health percent to get to the next phase. I think eventually I'll have a way to push a monster into a phase regardless of the health that he's currently at. But what we want to do is just make sure that even if the monster gets health back for some reason and he's been pushed up into the phases, he doesn't actually revert back. So whether that means I'm going to be making a comparison on it and figuring out what his current phase is and use that as kind of the baseline. So phase 1, which I can just do this. Does Unity have that issue where if you don't make a default constructor that's empty for your classes, it kind of complains?
No.
Unity doesn't have any, like, do they use mono still?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it does not require you to write your own constructor.
Well, it does this weird thing where it'll occasionally just yell at me that I have a class that's not a default constructor, so it can't set up I think it's called a preview. And it might be something to do with the fact that it's like, it's doing something behind the scenes where it's like, hey, I need to make sure that this thing can be previewed in mono before it gets sent out. Okay, so let's make these phases. This will be phase 1 with let's start with switch to phase 2 at 66%. Actually, no, phase 1 should just be 1 because that's where you start with. And then ID 1, I'll go ahead and just make a bunch of these, make 3 phases for them. Now, I've already built a system in the behavior tree for these guys that can flag certain actions on and off as valid or invalid, which is handy for the most part, except when I forget to set it and I'm wondering why a monster isn't doing his action like he should. So I'll just do it this way.
All right. We have a texture. We have a new shader. Now, why doesn't my fancy scrolling work?
If you need to turn off the jolting's behavior for it, actually, you probably don't need to do that. You can just do that right in the scene, right?
I'm just looking at it on its own right now.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you think that it's possible to get the lights even higher? Like, what do you think the upper limit is on the lights, the dynamic lights?
The count?
Yeah, it's 32 right now, and I'm like, well, could it be 64? Like,
I mean, man, if the array thing worked, I'd be like, crank it up. But
like, what's the bottleneck there?
Not being very big, the GPU could end up waiting for that big update for all those properties. I mean, I think the answer is we just have to try it.
Yeah.
Find out. I don't think anybody's gonna know. I think that's like kind of the price of the Godot community. A little bit.
Yeah, that's the price of any open source stuff, other than the bugs.
Well, yeah, and we're kind of doing some wacky stuff. Which I don't expect the average human is,
The only thing I think of is like, okay, all these jolting projectiles that I was messing with, I was putting a lot out, like trying to see how much, and you did hit that limit pretty quickly. And I'm wondering how I could reduce that, and I'm thinking, with them, it's the same thing with the fire projectiles, the one that come out of the fire staff. It's like a torch. Mm-hmm. I could just put them on the top layer past the shadow mask for everything. Yep. And that would make them look brighter without having to add another light.
Right.
But I don't know. Yeah, but you don't think there's any like particular reason why it couldn't go higher than there's probably some amount of calculation going in there that's going to be...
Yeah, no, I mean, eventually it'll be a performance bottleneck. In terms of being able to update fast enough at the frame rate. And that's going to be hard to parse on PC because of the plethora of hardware combinations.
Mm-hmm. But if they're not all being used, do they still count towards calculation? Like, is that just...
Yeah, it doesn't care. It's the same size no matter what.
Okay. So just the fact that it has to scan through those unused lights, it's still a problem.
Yeah, I mean, the math is really cheap. So it's not like drawing any one light is hard. The biggest problem is pushing all those vectors over to the down for each light. That's the killer.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder because I'm wondering also if I'm catching too many lights on the edges of things, like there's too many. Right. Even just the static lights are causing too many grabs. I don't know. I was also thinking like maybe I could do something where I dynamically grab lights that are close to each other and combine them and do a thing where I get them. Okay, your two lights are close, therefore have all their stuff. And then move it between the two.
Well, color blending might get weird.
Yeah.
It might be okay. Like, that might work. But now you're looping over all the things every frame to see if they're close enough that they should merge. And then, okay, well, exactly how close should they merge?
Yeah. I would probably do most of what I do is tile based. Like, all of the characters that move, they have an amount of flocking, so they push away from each other with that amount, and there's a curve in there that says, okay, if you're really close to him, we push you faster. And when you're kind of on the edge, we don't push you so far. But it only loops through the guys that are in the nearest 8 tiles around him. And my tiles, every time you change a tile, it will track that. It doesn't actually update every frame or iterate through every frame. It just checks when people have been added or removed from tiles, which it seems to work better than actually just using the physics and doing a volume check, because I keep almost everything off that physics thread because that tends to be the biggest bottleneck.
Right.
Although I did just do a big update that I didn't mention earlier, which is, you know how when you swing a sword in the game, it's doing these calculations of sweep checks as you go through. It's actually like going through. It's not putting a big, like most games will just put a big plane right on top of it and say, all right, if you're in this plane at X frames, you're hit.
Yeah.
I'm actually sweeping on the frame perfect. And what that can do if you're running on a lower frame rate, it actually causes you potentially to miss entirely. Like he'll catch on one side of you, and then the swing will go down, and that 60th of a second it'll catch the other side. So what I did is like an onion skinning effect where it will sweep, and then it will sweep it'll catch the last sweep it was at, and then kind of do a lerp between the two and kind of average out. So it does a little bit better job at sweeping through. And I'm wondering if that's something we could, I mean, that seems to work pretty well. Like those calculations are pretty light, but I don't do them unless projectiles are out.
That's for sure. It certainly seems like it could work.
Yeah. But it could. I mean, I could use that same system for when lights are close enough.
Yes, I think that would work.
Okay, so
are you pooling the lights at all? Have we talked about this? I can't remember if we talked about
lights, the components themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. When they're added and removed from the scene, yeah. And then it does filter through the lights, and it will, it drops out the ones that are low importance.
Right, because is that our custom component? I can't remember.
Yeah, custom.
Okay. Yeah.
There's very few things in Godot that work well out of the box.
Yeah, no, I know. Let me see if because how did we do? Let me go find the light thing. Matte lighting. Okay, yeah, it's a bunch of vector 4s. What I wanted to do was to do 4x4 matrices.
Aren't those planes or something like that? Then there's some different version.
I think that is what we eventually discovered. Was like it just had a wacky name.
I really did like a lot of how Godot 4 does its threading now. It seems to be a lot better.
That's good.
It's so much. They have this new resource loader that lets you kind of just pass things to it, as opposed to I had to build my own like scene loader with threading, and it's and what's weird about it didn't even work on Android. So I had to build one that wasn't even like Godot. It was like a separate thread. Like Godot has its own threads, and then I was just grabbing the C# threads.
Right.
So it's kind of a monstrosity. I'm not sure exactly how good it is, but it seems to do the job for now. Let's see. I've got the damage bolt. Okay, I want to grab this guy.
Was this a canvas item, or was it? Let me just look.
It's a node.
It's
the light
canvas
course?
item. No. I'm looking at our lighting shader again.
Yeah, that lighting shader is on the canvas overlaying the camera.
Oh yeah, and we did the 2 2 float pack.
Yep. I don't think there's much you can get out of it anymore. I think it's basically at its...
Well, so in theory, and this is the thing we'd have to test. In theory, we could, if we packed these as 4x4 matrices, then it would be fewer property sets on the material. There would be less CPU, right?
Yeah.
Because it would do a block of them. It would do a block of 4 lights all at once, as opposed to having to do them all individually. So, you know, if the CPU to the material in order for it to process on the GPU is the bottleneck, then we would have 32 times 4 lights for the same price as having 32 lights as vector 4s.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or we could do like 64 lights for the same price and not have to be so cute about the packing and unpacking, which would improve precision. Although they don't seem imprecise at all.
No, they're close enough. I mean...
Like, it looks totally fine. Cannot tell that it's maybe if the blue channel is faintly off. It's indistinguishable.
Yeah, and the frame rate's fine. I mean, I don't have any issues with the 24 frames.
No, it does fly. Sorry, I'm whacking my mic. Oh, well, let's see. What else could we do? We could potentially move like some of the world stuff into. We could do 2 shaders. No, there's not a good blit option, is there? Read and write pixels sucks. And the lighting is a full screen single item. That's what we did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an overlay basically for the whole thing.
Right.
Which is you know how you were discussing like the Z ordering and like adding 10 per different layer you need. Godot's only got like 32 layers. Like you can't go higher than a certain value on that thing, so going 10 up doesn't work.
Who's responsible?
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a smart idea. It's like start using it. Like, no, doesn't like that.
Yeah, it immediately falls apart. Oh, dang. That sucks.
I do wonder. I mean, I think Godot also does some hard caps on like in its animation as well. It does at 32. I don't know why they picked that number, but like you can't make a switch statement in the animation tree higher than 32. So I had to do some really funky stuff with the animation tree to make the animations work.
Right, set shader param. That's the goober we want. I remember this nightmare. What was a plane? What's the definition of a plane?
The plane? Plane is a vector 4 basically.
A float, a vector 3, and then 3 other floats. Weird.
That's a plane? I thought it was just a vector 4. I thought they just added
There's
an extra.
another one that's 3 vector 3s.
Okay.
So 3 vector 3s.
Right, so current phase is.
We just have to pack X and Y together too. But that could potentially get us a block of 3 lights by 3 lights. This is not what I signed up for today. Going back to this lightning.
Oh, you don't have to deal with that.
I'll put a note in here, though.
I'm not forcing you to do that.
Set shader param.
Okay, so if the phase
I've
ID...
made a comment.
Okay, so if the phase ID is less than the current phase, or if it's... ignore it. Because we don't never want to go back into the phase we just left. So if it's less than or equal to the current phase, ignore it. And then so if the current health is less than the phase, I don't want it to, actually I want to make sure that it gets the highest phase ID from the remaining phases. So what I really need to do is I need to grab the one that's in between. I'm going to grab this guy. This is going to be my... Okay, so this is going to get, if the health is less, but if it jumps, it's going to go into the phase below too fast, which I don't like. I don't like that one bit. Skipping a phase is not good. Okay, so health change, determine phase. I want to... So what this would do, in theory, if you end up hitting a guy hard enough, it could knock them into the lowest phase. Yeah. Okay. That way, if it'll get the lowest health percent out of this list. Assuming that the current phase is not lower than the checked phase. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So if this phase has changed, now I need to actually make the event for phase change. I think I built it already. So
All right, now we're getting somewhere. So I had it right the first time. I just had the numbers backwards. I thought I needed tiny numbers, but I needed big numbers.
yeah.
Yeah. Still not quite fast enough though.
Do you think it's something that needs a like a linear speed to it, or if it's something we need to throw on a curve for a speed?
Well, I just want, like, I'm not even dealing with the motion right now. I just want it to, like, look kind of lightning-y.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I needed. Cut off.
Okay, so now I've got the event set up, and it will fire out. I think this guy binds properly to it, but I need to do this guy. I need to get phases. I think the biggest thing is if the monster doesn't have any phases, then we should just early out. Because it's going to be set to phase 1 the whole time. Do you happen to know if there is a benefit to leaving a list null versus leaving an empty list?
Well, you'll generate some garbage when you make it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess up until the point you make it, you'll save some heat, but you'll also create some garbage that'll then have to get dropped at some point.
But a null one does that one? Because I imagine they both allocate memory.
I don't think it will. I think null will it won't be anything in there.
Okay, and then do you happen to know if that's worked for structs as well? Because I've got a struct that I was messing with that could be, like the biggest thing I don't like about structs is you can't null them. You can't make them null.
Right.
But you can make the elements in them null. It does work. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Let me see this 1 second. I think I have. Yeah, I built thing for my projectile data. I ended up converting this guy from oh, it's a class. Never mind. Wait. It's not this guy. It's some other one. Hold on. It's a fire event.
That's maybe
okay. So I have a struct that I built recently that was this is what I use to add projectiles or add status effects to projectiles. Normally, a projectile itself has a status effect on it. But in the case of making these feats, I want to be able to add additional ones. And so this is a list that's null, like 90% of the time. And I'm wondering if that's a problem, if I should figure out a different way to do it in this, either in the struct or using it going a different route, or if it doesn't matter.
Additional gameplay effects. No, you've probably got to do it like that. I mean, short of... Your other option would be like a bit mask if you have them already queued up somewhere.
Yeah. This needs to...
Right, like that would be the absolute smallest you could probably get it is if it was just a straight up
bit
mask. And then they like queued themselves all into a thing when they needed to be thing, but then you've got to figure out how you tie those payloads together initially to be like, this thing needs to go find that other thing to then get the right mask. I mean, you'd have to kind of do it at edit time.
Yeah.
Which probably not the move.
Yeah, probably. I was actually looking at, I know you had mentioned a while ago that you guys used an int as your positional data with like, take the 5 digits on each. And I was thinking about doing that because I'm using two shorts, two shorts right now for position data. And it's not that I don't lose that many tiles, right? I lose a handful, but I'm also actually hitting the point where my I think actually hitting the point now where I have enough of unique projectile names,
right,
to where I'm almost past a byte, and I think I'm at like so the big things that I send across the network are projectile names, strike names. I think my strike table is actually bigger. It's like almost 150 now, and the strike basically sends off the data. All you need to like play the animation for it, to apply the effect to the person who's using it. So like if you're blocking, it applies the block status. So it holds a bunch of information in an enum that I send across. That's like the only that's sent across and then read on the other side. 175 to.
Goodness, how have you not run out of... That'd be so big. How many entries is that?
It's just 150.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. It's
how does that even work? It doesn't serialize these out as ints? How is it not
Well, it does.
out?
It serializes out as ints. It comes out as a byte.
Oh, interesting.
Like when this gets set across the network, it's collapsed to a byte.
Interesting. Yeah, Unity doesn't play ball with any new bigger than 32
Really?
entries.
That's
That's why I do everything as scriptable object references for this sort of thing.
interesting. Well, eventually, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Is I'm gonna have to start moving this out and making these into resources. Like my giant tables of stuff are a little unwieldy, and it's just this thing's what, 4,000 lines, but like this is every attack in the game done by every monster and player in every combination of weapons.
Oh gosh, and a mega switch statement.
It's well, what it does on the projectile one is it actually, because these things, I don't want to make all those classes unique. It actually populates them, and I get them out of a dictionary because I get all the data out of that. This one doesn't, because the strikes contain some functionality on them, and so they have to be a class that can be individually mutated. So they're assigned on the weapon. So when you swap a weapon, it loads in your strike classes. And then when you change a weapon, it clears them all and loads in a new set of strike classes. But it does it for every person. So probably a little overkill there. This was originally written out in HTML or an XML doc that I was doing, but I kept adding stuff that was more complicated and made the Excel sheet kind of, crap to bed in certain ways. When you start adding like projectiles and status effects that apply and all the data on those, you end up having to cross-reference these sheets, and it becomes really cumbersome. So this is where it's been sitting. I mean, eventually I have to figure out how I'm gonna undo it.
All right, you wanna look at a particle?
Yeah.
See if I'll share my screen. Can you capture that, or do you need me to push this?
Ooh, it looks pretty. I can't capture it because you're coming in only as audio capture.
Oh, I'm just a disembodied voice. Okay.
Oh, let me see if I can. I could do the horrible stream thing where I can do picture in picture.
You tell me.
Hold on, let me see if I can grab this. That's as big as it gets. That can't be that. Looks cool.
Get gooey. What is it with you and the no differences? Then why are they here?
Yeah, for some reason it's not capturing your Skype image. So just send it on over. I can just grab it if you want.
Okay. Yeah, just checking. All these sounds and things have changed. Oh yeah, that's right. I can just stage the things I want. That's right. No, that's not the one I want.
Okay, throw me off my flow. All right, so monster faces is null. We'll return. And I want this initial phase to be 1. Okay, so now when he updates his health, he'll do this determined phase, and then that phase goes to this thing, and I'm going to track it now. Actually, I got to grab his controller. Looks like it's going to bring the controller over. I will step out for a sec, Alan. I'll be right back.
All right.
You can entertain everybody.
I'll just be here, trying to stage files. Alright, hello to everybody watching. Our cruel overlord has left us. And I don't think he'll watch this back, because who would? Here in a second. A little ball of lightning to take a peek at. See if we like how that looks. I can ramble a little bit about how the projectile art works. At this.
Okay.
I push to main or master? Which is the one? Main?
Let me see. I can always merge if you. It doesn't really matter to me.
No. I don't want to live through that. It's to main, right?
Hold on, this thing's yelling at me. Okay, source branch. Yeah, you want to push it to main.
Okay.
I always push to master and then I merge.
Pushed to main. If you want me to push them to master and then you can merge it, that's fine too.
You could just send me the file. It would take like 2 seconds.
No, it wouldn't. There's like 4 things and they've all got to be in the right spots because the material won't all go together and I'm not reading you all 50 numbers or whatever this thing is.
Oh, right. You can't just send me the resource?
Maybe, dude. I don't know how this thing works.
And the resource should have all that data in it.
It'll pull in all the references?
It,
How to do that. Okay.
Okay, so need to run get phases on this guy.
Well, it's pushed. If you pull, you should be able to take a look. For posterity, will reveal the secrets of the.
Oh, it's gonna make me want to pull. It's gonna make me want to merge what I've got or change what I've got. Let me see.
I probably didn't touch anything that you've touched. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Because it's gonna be 3 new files and then a change to the Holy Jolt scene. So.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yep, and then pop open the Holy Jolt when you're ready.
Yep, 1 sec. I got it. I want to see if it's... So I fetch from main, and I want to merge, local merge.
I think the danger with this one is that it might be hard to tell that you've been hit.
Well, I've got a bunch of things that give you feedback on hits, so...
No, I know, but like it's got so much negative space that like the edge is gonna graze somebody and they're gonna be like, that didn't touch me. It could be one of those, you know. Which we could probably improve by tuning some of these colors a bit, but you get the idea.
Okay, local merge. Okay, I grabbed it. I do wonder if they're going to be doing any more updates to 3.5 before they push to 4 and stop paying attention to
I just want to be able to share shader code. This is like the Stone Age.
Okay, here we go. But it's blue. It can't be blue. So what is what's the pixelated lighting I'm seeing there?
That's just the texture is tiny.
Okay.
All the textures are tiny. If they're not tiny, they won't match up with all your little pixel art peeps.
Let me see.
Yep, that, and then shader params.
I'm doing
Look right down there, under where it says render priority.
Yeah, right here.
No, don't do it that way. It's gonna get weird. I mean, you can do it that way, but that I think gets animated, or it could get animated to setting controls. Yeah, change that guy.
So where's my cutoff?
Cutoff is right there.
This is basically similar to the other one with the.
Yeah, so same principle. You have the exact same mask texture up top. That's what's actually set on the sprite component. And then in here we've got an effect pack that has like some lightning kind of stuff. And that's what's popping around. So you increase those quantization numbers. See where it says effect 1 quant and effect 2 quant? Those are modifying the frequency of the scrolling update. So the higher the number, the more sort of frames you will get as it scrolls along. The lower the number, the longer it will sit still before it jumps to the next chunk. And then changing the actual scroll numbers will change the... You got to move it like quite a bit. Like make it like 10 and then put it back at 5.5.
Okay. What is and there's no... let me see. It almost feels too regular, you know?
No. It's pretty chaotic. Remember, it's going to be moving.
Yeah, let me just give it a shot.
Yeah, try it. Save it and play. If you want it to have a little more body, make that 0 color, not black.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, I mean, most of my stuff ends up having, like, outlines and crap to it, so...
Yeah, I know, but we have been doing that on particles.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like the little flash that'll occur randomly.
Oh, they need a positional offset, don't they?
Yeah, maybe the cutoff is too high.
Yeah, they could be bigger.
What's that?
Okay, so step 1, make that 0 color, make that 0 color like orange or something. The one that's currently black. Nope, leave that one.
Oh,
Leave
that not.
where it's at.
This one goes to yellow?
Yeah, because all your holy stuff is yellow, right? Yeah, that'll give it a little more around the edge.
Okay.
Then I would say increase the power a little bit. See where it says power right underneath cutoff? Yeah, crank that up a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, and then give it a bit more text fill.
What's the text fill do?
So that's going to apply the mask texture as an additive piece here as well. And so since that's a circle, that'll give it a little more of a center to it. Yeah, if you pull the cutoff up, I would push the text fill down a bit. And then you can always play with your...
Okay.
You can always play with the mixes and the scales. If you feel like it seemed like it was maybe too small to me, so see that effect 1 scale offset right there? That's like 0.5, 0.8 on the XY. Make that like 2 and 2. Like
wait,
dead middle of your screen.
Well, hold on.
Dead middle of your screen, slightly up in the vector block.
This effect 1 scroll?
Yep, effect 1 scale offset. Keep going up 2 properties from there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there. Make the X and Y on that one like 2.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, that seems better.
Now, I want to just double check.
A little too chunky before.
Yeah. Let me see if the... I don't even remember what shape this thing has. Let's see.
This is one where we may need to add world position so that they don't all look the same.
Yeah, if they're going out.
I say that in like the Diablo one, they all look the same in Diablo. Very upsetting.
So there's circle 3. So that's, let me just real quickly add another shape here. Shape. I want to see what it's going to look like at a radius of 3. Probably due to be a radius of 5. Let me do that.
Close. It's not right yet.
They look at they're at the wrong scale, don't they? The pixel scale.
Maybe.
Like, they look like they're much finer in terms of pixel size.
Yeah, let me look how big the other ones were.
Is there a scale on top of this thingy? Let's see.
I mean, you can pixelate the thing in the shader. Switch that do pixelate to 1, and then set the size you want in there. Make it like 16 by 16. Or just turn on 1 and see how it looks.
It's all crumbled at that point.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get the... I mean, you're going to have to decrease the scale of the stuff then.
Okay. But it's weird that the... Hold on, there's got to be something going on here with scale size.
Explosions. Show info. I'm trying to see how big the old stuff we made was.
I mean, I could probably... Very weird. Like,
64.
what size of texture did you have in this thing?
The 64 by 64. It's the same size we did the other effect textures at.
Interesting.
Yeah, it does seem a little fancy though.
Yeah, we need to be because in terms of the size with the collision on this over here, this should be 10 pixels across. And so that means, I mean, that makes kind of sense for this being 32 pixels out. No, that doesn't make any sense because that's 5 pixels across. It feels like this thing's at double the resolution.
Right.
Where's like is there anything here I can mess with to change the?
Well, let me mess with it for a bit. You go back to doing your thing.
All right.
I'll track it down. That'll be easier than us playing telephone, messing with the material settings.
All right, spawn boss. We've got the controller. I want to do
because too many pixels is straightforward notes. I mean, we have not done any sort of like trying to keep the things quantized to line up all the pixels of all the things.
No, and I don't think that's necessary. Like the character movement isn't on that. No real things actually require that. It just looks really weird when there's stuff that doesn't have the pixel count. That isn't like a really soft thing like a lighting.
Yeah. Well, and we may find that like this effect lives too long for what we've been doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so phase change. Now I need an, let's see. This is going to have to start a phase. And so this is going to start all the timers for my layer actions. So what I want to do is I want to make two things happen when the monster enters the different phase. I want him to do like a burst action that does some event, and then I want to have a timer started for spawning monsters or whatever it's going to be doing. In this case, I'm going to start him off with just spawning monsters because that's the quickest tech I have. So we're going to make another function called spawn monsters. Spawn monsters. I'm going to go through my layer tiles. And I'm going to find some layer action tiles. So let's see. Most of my monster spawning takes place in the spawn point manager, I think. Actually, I put it all in my dungeon master script. I bet it's going to link back to the spawn point manager though. Where does it call spawn monster? Here. Yep, spawn point manager. That is the one I want. I want to spawn monsters. I want to track them too. What's great about this Dungeon Master script is that I now track monsters in separate pools, so the monsters outside of rooms are in their kind of street monster pool. And that way, if people run away from them and they despawn, I can spawn the whole lot of them back on top of them when it's the next spawn time. So I need to find how many... the way that I have written out is I want to spawn one monster plus one for every active hero there is in the match. So let me do this. What's the best way? Player manager, I think, has the get players. Get players dot count. Okay, so I need to find this thing. It requires me to select it at a point, which I don't want because I don't need a spawn point. I need to spawn them at a tile. And I think I have a bunch of override statements that allow me to spawn them at locations. Yeah, so here I got spawn monster, this override for the tile it needs to be. Excellent. And what I want to do is I want to get a random tile out of my list. Eventually, I'll probably end up getting tiles that are near players. I think I've got a function for that too, which will make sure that it gets a tile that's within a player, so that whenever a monster spawns, it's going to spawn that's not too far away. But for now, I think because the room is small enough... Okay, so this gets spawn points near hero. But I think for right now, the room is small enough to where this will be fine. Okay. GD dot. Is this not including Godot, and that's why it's yelling at me? Yep, doesn't include Godot.
Didn't we have a magic number worked out for like pick pixel to world scale?
It's 16 pixels per tile. 16 pixels per tile. You can look at the in the constants script. There's a bunch of like constants that are being used, and there's even a factor in there, which is like, I think it's like 16. Let's see. It's like 1 divided by 16. And I think there's one for chunks too.
Sounds right.
So there should be a bunch of stuff in there.
0.06 sounds right. It's not giving me the result I expect.
It's Godot itself, it's a pixel based scale system. So 1 pixel is 1 pixel. I mean, or 1 unit under the hood for Godot. It's kind of weird, but they do a pretty good job of scaling the pixels. How often do you end up using uints for your random number generation? Do you end up using those at all?
No, not really.
It's one of the things that
Shaders, you basically use halves or fixed.
Mm-hmm. The like Godot's random event tends to use just this big uint, and then it's just, it's okay, but it's really kind of, unless you're spending time digging at it, it's kind of hard to understand what's going on. Like, they don't have it, especially in I think I looked in the new one. I don't know if they had a random range like you would expect. Let's see. Okay, so I got my index here. I need to grab my spawn tile index. That's my new tile, and then I also need to make sure that my layer action tile count is greater than 1. So I don't have any layer action tiles. If layer action tiles is 0, return. We can't spawn anything. Okay. And then I want to make sure that when the boss spawns, so this should happen whenever it first spawns the boss. Should run the phase 1 events. And then I'll run that one. So phase changed, and now we'll run enter phase, and we'll have the new phase int. Now I'll probably end up making a thing where I clean up the old phases too, just in case you've got monsters that I want to clear out once a phase is changed.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, so here's where I want to actually run this thing and make sure it's working. Spawn monsters, and let's go. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't actually made it spawn a Demogorgon boss room. Normally I'm just doing this. Okay, so the script in the scripting tile map, it's populating these events, and I want to do it instead of just creating a new boss room event here. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay, so the way that I assign the tiles in a room is I cycle through all of them and then I start adding them to a class. But if I don't have the flag for the class, then I can't change it. What I need to do is I need to move them into a temporary location and not a new class. And then I need to copy them all over once I've finished. That is a trouble. Well, for now, we only have one type of boss room, so I'm going to do this. Assume it's a Demogorgon boss room. And then our monsters, we're going to spawn imps at the spawn tile. Perfect. I'm going to spawn a bunch of them to start with. Okay, boss room is open. Let's go ahead and see if this thing will spawn what I need. There we go. Okay, so now we do have the imp spawning and the first phase. And they can be annoying. Great. And I'm going to go make sure the second phase spawns another group, just to make sure things are working. Spawn monsters. One. We'll break this into the second group. And we'll call this, we'll spawn the armored skeletons. Now we've got layer 2 tiles, and there's the layer 2 tiles. And so this should only hit when phase 2 is hit. And phase 2 is assigned at 1/3 or 2/3 of his health. Let me just make sure. Okay, skeleton, layer 2 tiles, got the index. Okay. And then for the third one, we're just going to hold on to this. I want to make sure it hits though, so let me just do a print. And so, according to this, the boss room going east, that means the layer 1 action should spawn these guys, and the layer 2 action should spawn the other group. So they should be coming in different locations. Getting close. Should be a hit or two away. No, it's definitely not triggering. Let me do a breakpoint into this. Okay, so it's somewhere in here. I want to make sure the phase changes. So if the phase doesn't change, then we're in real trouble. Let's go to the monster controller. Okay.
Ah, this is where I need this.
I think I got that backwards. So if this current phase is already greater than the phase we're checking, continue. I think that's what's happening. What did you figure out?
So I think we got to give these things a random offset of some kind. And so, because I have the code just laying around, I'm going to try doing that on projectile subtype.
You've seen, oh man, didn't hit it. I wonder what's happening there. It's not even picking up the, it's not even picking up the health change.
Not even
There we
picking
go.
up the health thing.
Alright. Oh, because his monster phases never got set. I didn't actually go through that. God damn it. Alright. Get.
Oh, weird. My Xbox controller doesn't work. Did for a second. Try again.
I probably should just read instead of actually copying this into here.
Go. Oh.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, they're all set as one. That's probably a big deal here. Okay, this should work this time. I need to really vary up my music because I just loaded one track in. I think I am gonna go through and try to compress it too. I don't think any of the audio tracks I have are compressed. There we go. So now I got phase 2 added. Got all the monsters spawning in here. And then phase 3 should hit once I've... God, I'm getting my ass kicked. Okay. Okay, great. So that one worked out pretty good. Now I want to do some funkier stuff. We've got the monsters spawning, and now what I want to do is I want to spawn them at a set rate, and then I want to do the other part, which is I want to do projectile spawning as well. The same way that traps will spawn projectiles at various times. I'm going to do something similar to that. I don't think I'm going to spawn traps, though. I think I'm just going to spawn the projectile themselves. But I have a good projectile for that. I have the tentacles, which would be pretty sweet. Okay, so these only trigger on enter phase, and now I want to figure out a way to do ticks in the phase. I don't believe the boss rooms have the ability to tick right now. But I think the monster rooms tick. Let me see what I do with the monster rooms.
Is it possible for Node 2D to not have a material?
I think it has a default one all the time, though. Like a...
Well, that's what I thought too, but...
Like it always doesn't always have like a canvas shader.
Yeah.
Are you just getting null when you're grabbing it?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Okay, so this guy does have a way to tick. Activate spawner events. This must be here. Where are you being called? You're probably registered on the mission or something like that. That's the event state. Okay, so this one does this registers for mission process, which is kind of what we want. I mean, a mission process has been used in a bunch of areas to tick things. Just don't know how I actually bind to it. I probably bind to it in the when it becomes active. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm gonna bind to it then. Now the cool thing about the working with these scripts is I usually don't use floats in any of my timing events because it's harder to network and different machines can have different float precision. But because this is all running on the server machine, it doesn't matter if we just use floats and do a standard tick down with the delta, because no one else will know. But I do want to override this event state here. Because I only want it to start ticking when I've entered a phase that actually cares. Although I don't want to, yeah, I'll just leave that like that. I'll do it all in this, on this side of things.
Which scene do I need to run in order to test the jolt? Is it the scroll in sandbox?
Sandbox, yep. It's there's one with a lightning bolt on it to the south.
Yes, okay. I found it. Oh, it's because this thing doesn't have the material. How do we solve this on the floor? Just assign it here, I think. Let's try that. I forgot I had to build to get stuff to show up in the inspector.
Oh yeah, you have to build. It's one of the really annoying things. You have to. I mean, there's a handful of UI things that Godot just annoys the hell out of me with, but.
Okay. Well, they all spawn from the same spot, so this is not super effective. Just need to give them a random number.
From the same spot on like the.
Yeah.
They're flickering at the same rate. So what I did is they're all offset by like a millisecond in there, so it's like a very tiny offset delay, but it wasn't really anything to do with that. It was just trying to give it a little more opportunity there. But they really don't need to be offset at all in terms of their spawn time.
That.
Okay, so I am going to the real question is, I just register once and then not worry about it, because I've got every single one of these will require me to have mission process running. So what I really just need to grab is grab this guy and run the parent.
Me to get a random number for these.
What's up?
What's the best way to get a random number for these?
Like straight up random number? GD dot rand range. If you want a range, it's doubles, inclusive doubles.
That's fine. 0 to 1 is fine. We will let the shader decide to do that.
Oh god, what is it called when you call the parent? Is it base? It's base in this. Oh, it's base.
Okay, and I gotta make sure both the projectile shaders support this.
I only want this thing to run when I'm active, and I want it to unbind when I'm no longer active.
Ugh. I don't know how Godot decided to write the only unvectorized shader language in the world.
Let's see. You should just write one for them. Just go into C++ and make it happen.
No. You'd have to pay me. That's not happening.
Yeah. Well, that they probably can't do. Although they did just like get a bunch of VC money, I think, for some, or they started their own little company, I think.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, I mean, it's one of the biggest issues people have with Godot is like it doesn't let you port the way like Unity and Unreal will to different.
Oh yes,
places.
I remember. We've talked about this now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're getting in on that action. I can't really blame them. Not a bad idea.
Right. They're going to have an official thing that will be the go-between to handle Nintendo's and whatever.
Yep. I've heard it's not even super easy to get one of those licenses these days anyway. They've always been a little stingy, at least, but it's been so long I wouldn't be able to know. I had a WarioWare license years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. All right, so now I want to spawn some things at a fixed rate. That's my monster spawn rate. Times till next spawn. Okay, so we have this guy, and we set it every time the monsters spawn for each type. Monster spawn rate, okay. And then under process here, we count down until our next spawn, and then we do that here. Now that's only going to work for the first phase. What I need to do is make it a little more generic. So spawn monsters, and then I want the second phase to spawn those projectiles. Spawn projectiles. I'm just gonna call them spawn tentacles. And I'm gonna cache that phase, current phase we're in. Actually, I don't really need to. I have the tracked monster. I can get his phase. So every time this thing counts down, it's gonna run through here, do a switch statement over this. And in 1, it'll spawn the monsters, and in case 2, it'll spawn the projectiles, spawn tentacles, and we'll break on each one of these. And in each one of these, it's going to adjust its time till next spawn based on what it's spawning. Okay. So now what I have to do is do the same thing I did with the traps. traps are one of those unique entities in the game that don't have a creature associated with this spawning event. I guess I do this with projectiles too. Projectiles, actually, they do have a GUID assigned to them because a projectile gets its parent's GUID to spawn the sub-projectiles. So let me look at how the traps do it. And I think there's actually an event type I built called a data type called trap data. I think this is, yeah, so the trap data has its own net actor associated, the animation it'll play, and then it sends the fire event. And here's the fire event. Looks like I built one that is sending the trap actor's GUID in. In this case, I don't have a trap actor, but what I don't want to do is have these projectiles be past the GUID of something that isn't that is the boss. Because if I end up doing projectiles that use the boss as their GUID owner, there can be some funkiness with how it pushes players away from the damage events and pulls them to damage events, and where the effect comes from. Let's see, how am I going to do that? That is interesting. Let's see what this guy does. So it has the timestamp here. So here's the fire event, and here is where it fires the projectile. So it actually constructs this based off of all this data, the fire event, and then it sends it. So really what I need is I need a GUID that I can reference for a projectile that just kind of spawns on its own, which is something I've not done yet. But I can do this at least. I can, so in the projectile subtype, it's probably going to be closer to use this guy, because this thing actually spawns projectiles at a position without needing a muzzle node. So this is perfect. I want to grab this guy. What I really need is like a world projectile, like something that has a world GUID that's like assigned to the dungeon master.
Will this random dot range like update the global seed? So like if it gets called multiple times in the same
You've got to
frame,
call randomize. Every time you the line before, type GD dot randomize. That's the only way the seed refreshes. I totally forgot about that. It's really, really annoying.
Yeah, it's one of those things you wish it would just do it.
Yep.
Just do it. You know why I'm here.
Yeah, I don't know what the use case is to use the same seed for the randomization of... I mean, clearly you could just grab this a seed.
Right. Why wouldn't you just have the thing, then give it to all of its little peeps if it needed to do...
But yeah. I mean, when I was first building in Godot, there's a whole... I didn't realize that Godot had its own randomized function, so I was building my own random number generators and then like making them and destroying them. And I was like, this is like a nightmare. And then I found out they actually have just a function for it. Wasted a bunch of time. Okay, so...
okay, well, I've got it looking better, but it still doesn't look right.
What does it look like? Yeah.
Very dubious that the thing is actually setting the seed on all these. Oh, it's not because I didn't set the target node. Oh, Rain, why are you like this?
Okay, for now, what I'm going to do on this thing is I'm going to use the tracked boss as all of my references for if it's as the owner. That's just the easiest way to do it right now. We'll have to figure out a new way to handle pushing. Actually, for now, the track boss is probably fine because I don't plan on spawning anything that pushes or pulls away from the source. Okay, so track boss, where's his owner? He doesn't have an owner. Good, he's got a good. Global position is fine. I just need to grab the tile that I'm spawning at. I don't want, so the target location on all these things is just going to be like, so the way that I send projectiles across the network is I don't send them a rotation. I send them a vector spawn position and a vector target position. And then I do the calculation on the other end because there's no need to do both. And you do need a target position for networking, especially when the movement of the person being attacked and the person that's attacking can be in the different places on the clients. So this just helps. Okay, so that one actually worked out. Let me see. I need to grab the projectile name, which means I need to make spawn tentacles. Don't want the monster. I got my spawn tile. Now I need to run this. Spawn projectile. I already know the name. This one's called Tentacles. Actually, I think it's Tentacles Telegraph. Because that one ends up spawning the tentacles themselves. And that's spawn tile. Get global position center. You should have seen Godot 4. Godot did this huge thing where it made all of what you would normally do is like getters. A lot of their parameters were just getters, and then like they had various functions were like get position. And then they went back on it and started doing it all as functions. I'm still not quite sure what the benefit is of the two. Like I use both in various locations.
Yeah.
But like a function call, is a getter not a function call? Is it, because I imagine that's like the biggest difference.
Hang on, sorry, I'm debugging. It's done a thing, but the thing it's done is weird. Thing it's done is weird. I like a getter when you're not passing any parameters. That's usually what I do.
You
now,
don't
like,
do just
way deep down, is there a difference? Does that, just in a field versus a function? I don't know.
Yeah, because I know there's obviously is it sit on the call stack like anything else?
I assume so. It's got to be a fetch.
Yeah, I imagine. I just don't know, like it annoys me sometimes when I see like get as a getter, and I'm like, well, okay, that could just be a function. Like I'm not passing anything to it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Let's spawn some tentacles. All right, let's just make sure these imps spawn. And they should spawn in a few more seconds. There they go. Okay, so another group of imps spawns. That makes perfect sense. And now, come on, if I kill this guy a little bit more, and here come the tentacles. So now he's going to randomly spawn these tentacles throughout the level. It's going to make it even harder to fight him. Every 15 seconds, he'll spawn another batch. Here's another batch. Looks like it picks the same one twice in some areas, which is not great. I'll have to pull them out of the list.
Okay, can I not make a pointer to like a child component?
What's that?
So we've got the Holy Bolt projectile here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get the sprite that's underneath it. Oh, that thing got checked off.
The sprite underneath the Holy Bolt? Yeah, you can just grab...
Yeah, but I want to assign it as a pointer. on projectile subtype.
Yeah, can't you just grab it? Do you know how to do? Do you know how to fetch nodes?
Well, it won't let me drag it in there.
Oh, you're trying to like assign the variable of it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me see if you can expose a sprite. I don't even know if you can expose something like that.
I can. But when I click the drop down, it only lets me pick new things. New image, new texture, new plane shape, new blah 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 blah.
Godot reference export.
I tried doing it just as a node 2D, and I tried doing it as a sprite. It won't let me like pick a thing.
Have you tried? There's something called node path. If you export a node path, change it to that and see if that does it.
Okay.
I remember seeing this a while ago where you could use node paths. I'm not sure it's good though. I thought it kind of sucked.
Oh.
I'll find out in a second. Let me just make one.
Build to build. Oh yeah, because now it doesn't like that thing is that thing. Okay.
Okay, so here's the node path. And I can get the sprite there. Yeah, I can grab the sprite from that.
Okay.
I don't know if it actually grabs the node though. That's what I'm confused by. Like, is it?
Yeah. Now yeah, I've got to look at how I cast
so
that.
I bet if they're under node path, you can actually get the node though. Let's see. Node path. Okay, node path, and then get node count. Okay, so
we want to do node.getNode and then
that's the best way to do it. I just run get node. Get node, run parameters, and that's my typical way of making sure things get node or null will let you grab the string, and if it fails, it'll actually return a null. If you do a get node and it is null, it'll yell at you. Okay, so now I'm spawning those guys. I want to make sure that each one of those, that list, does not hit the same location twice. So
what I need to do is I need to set up the material here so that this thing isn't scrolling anymore, just so I can see if it's even doing the thing.
okay, so I've got my temp tile list. And then I'll pull them out every time I spawn one of these guys, so they're not in the list anymore, and then we don't have to worry about them. Let's do the same thing for the tentacles. Okay. Gotta set this to tentacle spawn rate. We're gonna do that faster, just so it's something we can check. And I think we can run that. And so the last thing I want to do is, I've got the 2 basic pieces I want. The last thing I want to do is actually get a gameplay effect applied to my monster on a phase. And I got several things this gameplay effect is going to do. One, I'm gonna give him an invulnerability buff, and 2, I'm gonna stop him. So I want to like have a chance to put a breather on him when he switches phases. So that's the next thing we're gonna look at, is how I can get a gameplay effect on him that's not only gonna give him the ability to slow down, maybe just stop him entirely, but also kind of adjust his monster controller based on that gameplay effect. And then possibly what I could do is use that same gameplay effect to trigger his behavior tree to fire off a specific action. But first I want to check to see if this timing on the tentacles worked out. You know, the more I play this game, the more I'm like, I just make it linear, because I have enough stuff to make a fairly okay linear fighting room to room.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff that scares me, is like making the horde versus non-horde versus streets and interiors. Like, that seems much more complicated to tweak that, especially because it's got to be tuned for multiplayer and not. Oh. Crapped out. Something died.
Your audio was breaking up a little bit there. I'm not sure I got it all. It's probably Skype. It's probably Skype and not the stream.
I think the OBS stream is also not helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's like I've got enough tools to make it linear, but all the weird stuff that I have to do to make it run with a non-linear kind of map that has to, like, I'm just thinking about like all the keys and doors I have to put in to make those games work and actually be fun. It's actually kind of complicated, because I've got to build a level generator that thinks ahead and figures out to put a key behind the never put a key behind the green door. That's a green key, but put a blue key behind the green door. So now I have to build like a mental map of how this thing generates the world. And
yeah, I think you can make more assumptions than you think.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
I think you can come up with a pattern that is like, here's the star layout dungeon, and so it's always like A to B to C to D to E, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that can randomize, but then it's always like, okay, A has the key for B. B then has the key for C, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like, which is a puzzle, and then you can also do like, okay, well now here's a hallway dungeon, so it's always A, B, C, D, E. They're always in a sequence.
Yeah.
You know, because then you'll still have to go back through that middle room.
Yeah.
To get down there, and you can respawn stuff, and like that star shape, you get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, and it's the one shape I got now is just, it's a circle, but it's not a really. Again, every time I make a new shape, yeah, I can get a couple of patterns out of it, but is it enough to make it, 250 variations?
Because the drops are going to be different, and the mobs are going to be different, and your team is going to be different.
Maybe.
Like that's a lot of different. And then I think you can figure out ways to mix it up more, because all of those little spokes can be like a teleport to another room, right?
Yeah.
Like you can always be like, okay, here's the it's, instead of a 5-point star, it's a 3-point star. But when you go into number 2, okay, that jumps you into a hallway, and you've got to beat the hallway before you get back to the triangle, like with portals, or it jumps you to another 3-point star, and then you go back, and then you get to do the last one. Like I think you don't need many shapes. And honestly, changing the color is going to make it feel completely different.
Yeah,
every time.
I'm hoping that I don't have to spend too much more time making different chunks, because man, there's the time consuming. Like, it's the most time consuming part of this is arting up a chunk, and even though when it's arted up, I've got to like make all the variants of all the rooms in it, so it just starts exploding into it's like 4 variants of every room, and there's 4 quadrants in a chunk. And it goes nuts. Okay. Okay. Well, we're at 2 hours now. I think that's I'm probably gonna call it for the night. We can probably hang out a little longer if you're interested, but I'm gonna probably go grab some food
I don't want to
first.
leave this half done because I'll never get back. I'll never remember what I was doing.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna remind everybody that I'm gonna put this up on screen, the location of the game. If you guys want to play it, give some feedback. That would be great. Always looking for people to play. It's at itch. You guys can leave feedback in here. I've got the blogs updated every time I do a big push. Put up a couple days ago. Any kind of feedback you guys have, just in terms of core combat, still working that stuff out as we build more of the metagame systems in there. Would love to spend a little bit more time tuning the combat, making sure it's fun. So, yeah, get on there when you can. Alan, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, man.
And we'll talk to you guys next time. Later.